So in my last video, one of the things that I talked about was how Jesus has lost his inheritance because he has basically been fucking around for the last 2,000 years and ruining everything. And so I want to talk a little bit today about what happened and kind of a little bit about who has taken the reins, when that happened, why it's all happening. Because there are some direct implications for how the immediate future is going to shape out. And I wouldn't be doing my job as a prophet if I didn't tell you. So on November 19th, Pluto moved into Aquarius. And there has been, if you're not familiar with astrology, there has been in New Age circles kind of this heralding, so to speak, of what they call the Age of Aquarius, which is related to another ancient concept called the Great Year, where in every sign of the zodiac, the Great Year is 24,000 years-ish. It actually might be 26. I'd have to look it up. Anyway, it's a long time, far longer than any one human lives. But every sign of the zodiac has a division within the Great Year that is somewhere between 2,000 and 2,200 years. And so the sign that we just left was Capricorn, and we are moving into Aquarius, or we have moved into Aquarius. And when that happened, there was a major shift in the cosmos. So if you have been hanging around New Age circles and you have felt kind of different energy, particularly for the last month, you're not crazy. What happened was, so previously, the governor, so to speak, of this plane was Saturn. Saturn is still the ultimate ruler. He's the one that God has given dominion over this universe, but he has handed over control to someone else. There are many reasons for that, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But so originally Saturn's plan was that his heir was going to be his son Jupiter, but like I mentioned in the last video, Jupiter has been fucking around for the last 2,000 years and ruining everything. The avatar of Jupiter, who you are the most familiar with, is Jesus. And like I said before, what an avatar is the human incarnation of a god who is sent to Earth for a particular purpose. What Jesus was sent to Earth for was to basically make it known to the Hebrews that God forgave them, that their God forgave them for the Canaanite genocide. I talked about that last time. You can go watch that video. But because Jesus' parents decided that he wasn't worthy of his inheritance, Saturn stepped down. There are many reasons for that too, but because he needed somebody else to take over for him, and his son had lost his privileges, he handed the reins to somebody else, and he handed the reins specifically to Jesus' historical rival, who is the Phoenician storm god Baal-Hadad. Baal-Hadad is the oldest son and heir to Mercury, and so when Hadad took the reins, that was at the start of the Age of Aquarius. And so let me rewind a little bit as to why all of that happens, and just to why it was that Saturn could hand the reins over in the first place and all of that stuff. So historically speaking, the traditional planetary ruler of the sign of Aquarius is Saturn, which means that Aquarius is Saturn's to bestow. And like I said, originally it was supposed to go to Jupiter, but Jupiter lost his privileges because of bad behavior, so he gave it to Mercury. And he gave it to Mercury for a lot of reasons, but I'll do another video about that at some point. But suffice it to say, Hadad proved himself to Saturn over and over again, and to Saturn has been more of and a better son than Jupiter ever has been. So he received Jesus' inheritance, and he is now the governor of this plane. And so the reason why things feel different now is because, so Saturn is Mr. Karma, right? So Saturn is an agriculture god. He is perfectly content to let people reap what they sow. And so if people don't live righteously, he is totally fine with letting them deal with whatever the consequences of that are. But so Mercury doesn't quite work the same way. Hadad expects good behavior, and he is not particularly patient with people who don't demonstrate it. But just because he has a very different governance style, the rules of the cosmos are different now that we have entered the age of Aquarius. And basically, a good way to think about that is think about every entry in the Great Year, every epoch of the Great Year, as being like the page of a book. And what happened was we reached the page filled up with the Capricorn page filled up, and we turned the page to a new one. And now we have a blank slate, so to speak. Specifically, the implications of that are, some of them are yet to be determined. Some of them are not. Like I mentioned, Mercury has much higher standards for people's behavior, and he does hold people to those standards. And he is very unhappy with Jesus. So why, you may be wondering, is Hadad upset with Jesus? If you were to ask him, he would say that the reasons are never ending, but there are a few that stand out. And one of them, so we'll start with the obvious, which is the same reasons that his parents are upset with him, which is that he has just been fucking around and misabusing his privileges for the last 2,000 years and doing things like making modern capitalism, which is the only system that could have resulted from taking Jesus at his word and following in his example. And the reason for that is because when your primary objective is to shore up resources and spiritual energy and what have you at any cost, you don't necessarily care, for one thing, about the well-being of the people who you get it from. But also, just a step before that, you need to have a large supply of it. And so Jesus made a religion that enslaves people and gets them to give him their spiritual energy and power voluntarily. And then he takes control of their nourishment because he likes to domesticate his followers. I will do probably multiple videos about that because it is very important that y'all understand the mechanics of why Christianity is so insidious. And I will say too, that I am speaking from personal knowledge on that subject because I spent most of my life as a very loyal and dedicated follower of Jesus. Anyway, that is part of why Hadad is upset with Jesus. It's because of what that did to me.